Hello, welcome again. It's Adrian, and I want to introduce you to the very first lesson that the emphasis of this lesson is going to be about reading the source in AQA English Language Paper 1. Now, before I do that, I want to go back to sharing a screen and basically to show you that cover page again, because I want to show the emphasis about reading on that. I saved that from yesterday. So let me just go into that now. So when I spoke on the introductory video about the opportunity for students to join me in self-learning tuition videos, I scrolled all the way down to the information and I highlighted here the importance of reading that, again, a lot of students do not take on board. So this particular aspect of the exam of reading is really, really important. It says you'll be assessed on the quality of reading in section A. What I didn't show you yesterday is that the examiners on this paper factor in this. And it says here, you're advised to spend about 15 minutes reading through the source and the 5 questions. So that is actually factored in to the exam. So don't think that when you read a source, you have to rush it. As I said in the original video, I talked about how students often think they're wasting time by reading correctly. We know that's not the case. So let's move on to the source now. Now, this was from a specimen paper, so it didn't have a cover page on it, and many of the later exams have a cover page with more detail on. But when you come to read, what you need to do is to read the whole source, and that includes this bit, which is another part of advice and context that's been written by the examiners as well. So don't forget to read that, because that gives you more information. But here's the thing. What I want you to do in this lesson is to open up the source and read it in a relaxed way, and then time yourself. Okay, and then time yourself. So that's really, really important. And then when you have read the source, we need to go back to it and look in a certain way. So part 1, read the source, time yourself. So let's imagine you've now timed yourself and you are now looking back at the source. What I would teach you always to do is to make sure you know where this is all taking place and to look at the title. The title can be misleading, and I've had students believe that when they look at this title, they actually think that the title is part of the location. But when you judge the beginning of the source, then you'll find out differently. So what do you do after you've read it once? So the most important thing to do is to actually look at the structure of the source. So look at the beginning, because the beginning will set the atmosphere. Now, the beginning can take, in some ways, can be seen as, 2 paragraphs. And in this case, it would be probably all those paragraphs there. Because what I want you to imagine, that if you've read this source well, imagine you're going to make this into a video clip and think about what the writer focuses on in the source. So just have a think about that. So what does the writer focus on at the beginning? How does the source progress? What's introduced? And how does it end? So reading a source is very much about understanding what this is about, and then seeing if there's any links at the beginning to the end, and seeing how it's constructed. So let's come out of that for now. And let's come back here. Right. So this is a very short lesson, but it's one that's really, really important. And I want you to get used to practicing reading really well. Ask yourself questions after you've read the source. How did it start? How does the source complete? And I say complete because sometimes sources are the openings of stories, and sometimes they can be part of a short story. But generally speaking, look at the beginning and look at the end, and look at the way the atmosphere starts. It's always good to understand the mood at the beginning of a story. Now, on the ticker tape that's running across the screen, you need to really do these lessons in association with my revision guide called Adrian's Revision Secrets 1 and 2, which can be purchased on my website. It's only, I think at the moment, only about £5. But in Adrian's Revision Secrets 1 and 2, you can look, if you're doing lesson 1, and you will have a source to begin with, which will be sent. That's just for your first lesson, of usage. But then you can use Adrian's revision secrets 1 and 2 to help you practice reading those sources. And in this case, in the revision guide workbook, it is a guide workbook, you can look at pages 23 to 25 and then 38 to 40 in the book. Now I'm going to share my screen again and I'll show you an example of a second source just very quickly. So let's see what we can get up in this case. Right, so I'm going to share my screen now and you will notice this is a cover cut page and it is page 23 and there's more information on the cover page. So it's always important to look at the exam papers and how they're presented. So this actually says it's a 20th century prose fiction and it's called The Tiredness of Rosabelle by Catherine Mansfield, and it's an extract from a short story written in 1908. So, you know, it's got extra context. And again, there's a little bit more of that extra context in the source. And again, you can read through the source there. But this whole thing is in my Adrian's Revision Secrets 1 and 2. And as I've said to you, this can be purchased in a shop and it has all the information you need. Okay, so coming out of it yet again. So look, that's going to be the lesson for today. This is lesson 1. Lesson 2, we'll look at questions 1 and 2. Lesson 3 will be about structure and it will be question 3. And then lesson 4 will be question 4. And then we will look at lesson 5 in question 5. And it doesn't mean that ends there. The initial introduction to the tuition that I will offer on this self-learning mode will be that you will be able to look at these videos and go over them again and again and use the revision guide as well to practice. So look, I hope this is of help, but this is again just the lesson 1 reading. Very important that you read correctly and you read for intent and understanding. Remember, we talked in the introduction about the aspect of creative reading. Creative reading is a high-level skill when you've read a source, you not only understand it, you can start making assumptions and inferences about what is going on in the text and why the writer is doing these things. We need to always ask the question of, there's a 3-question mode: what, how, why. What is the story about? How is it presented? And why has the writer done this? Thank you very much for your time. See you again soon.